This is the Oppo Find X3 Lite 5G. Okay, coming in from Oppo, this is the Find X3 Lite 5G. It's a 5G Lite phone, a cheaper variant of the Oppo Find X3. Retails for around about £379, which isn't budget, I wouldn't say, but it has that 5G technology built into it, so it does come at a little bit of a premium as always. This is a test sample sent over by Oppo, and the box has been a bit beaten up in transit. But I think, given the seal on the side there, this might be the first time this one's been opened. I don't think it's been through another tech reviewer's hands, which would be nice. Okay, so we'll have a look through the packaging, and while it's booting up, I'll give you a rundown of the specs. So you're going to see this coming out for free, pretty much, on various different contracts through Carphone Warehouse and the likes. So what you get for your money in the bundle is kind of interesting. Right, okay, so we get a SIM card ejector tool, we get an Oppo pamphlet with product information inside it. We also have a quick start guide in various different languages. We also have a FCC regulation jobby thing, and then we have a warranty information. Plus we have a nice clear case. Love companies that put nice clear cases in. No reason to have it, just it's there because they look after their phones. There's a hole here, a hole here, a hole here, and a hole here. A hole there, and a button there, and a double button there. There's a hole there. Okay. There's the device. We'll come back to that in but a moment. And we have stuff underneath this plastic or cardboard cover. We have a USB Type-C cable, which is a wee bit green inside, which is nice. You'll probably not use that actually. There is a wee set of earbuds, which look somewhat Apple-y, but they're the type of earbuds that a lot of people get on very well with. They're not quite down the ear canal, but they're in-ear headphones. And finally we have the wall wart, although it does look quite nice. The smooth edges make it a wee bit different. And I guess in this day and age where we're starting to lose out on these more and more, it's just nice to have it in there. So down to the device, and we do have some sticky plastic on here. Pull that and it goes away. Okay, sorry, I was just adjusting the light there so it's a wee bit more illuminated, I suppose. Right, yeah, it's very glossy black plastic. You can see by the fingerprints already on the back, but that's fine because it comes with a transparent case. We have a 6.4 inch, which is a screen ratio of 91.7%, 2400 by 1080 display on the front here, which is full HD plus. It's got 90 hertz of a refresh rate, which is really quite nice, and it works out at about 410 ppi. The brightness is 430 nits, and it's a hard AMOLED panel, which is quite nice. Round the back here we have the camera bump, which is everyone's favorite bit to analyze. So on here we have a 64 megapixel rear camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel mono camera as well. Around the front here we have a 32 megapixel front facing f-stop 2.4 selfie camera on the front, which is quite nice, with a field of view of 85 degrees. So these cameras back here can obviously shoot video and photographs, and there's functions for panoramic, portrait, night, time-lapse, stickers, and dual view video, which is quite interesting as well. Goes up to 4K 30 frames per second in video and 1080p at 60 frames per second which is quite nice. So inside, the chip shows that it's around about a Snapdragon 765G, which is an 8-core, 2.4 gigahertz processor with an Adreno GPU, which is the 620. There's 8 gigabytes of RAM and usually 128 gigabytes of ROM. Down the bottom here we should have a USB Type-C and a 3.5mm headphone jack. That makes sense for those holes at the bottom. And a wee speaker here, microphone hole there. Around this side there's volume buttons here, and this is where your SIM card goes. Risk life and limb to pull it out right now to see if there is a micro SD card tray live rather than looking it up, which it doesn't seem to be. It does say actually in the specs there that the external memory is not supported, which is a bit of a pain. So you're limited to the 128 gigabytes, but for some people that should be alright. Whenever it comes to 4K video, might not be. That says connected. It's worth noting that the battery comes halfway charged, and it's a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, which should see us through the whole day. But I'm just realizing that there isn't actually wireless charging on the back, which is a bit of a shame. We have a NFC up there already on, just for you to be able to pair your gadgets almost straight away. But the 65 watt fast charging that's in the bottom should keep your battery pretty much topped up really quickly. They say that should mean that you will be able to charge the device in around about 35 minutes from 0 to 100%. So really, I guess you don't quite need wireless charging, I suppose. There could be an argument for it. You can see quite there that there's a little green mark on the power button as well, which is kind of a nice flourish too. And Color OS. It's important to note that Oppo have recently been charted to be the 4th largest phone manufacturer across Europe. So these are important phones actually. They're the underdog, the up-and-comer dog, if you like. So we've got calendar, photos, settings, and some tools there. Phone manager, game space, and compass. Compass, that's quite nice. Clone phone, tap to lock. Or one tap lock screen. Okay. And the screen is actually really, really nice. I'm really quite enjoying it. It's a good looking screen. It certainly helps that this background is gorgeous too. So, yeah, I might take this background and stick it on my phone. You can see down there that it does come pretty much down to the chin of the phone, and it actually looks quite nice where the phone finishes, and then there's a small black line before it gets to the edge of the screen. It's a really nice little chin there. It accents very well. It's quite gorgeous, and the representation of the icons on the screen is very smooth. If you're watching this in 4K, that probably does look quite nice. I'm quite impressed with that. We have Facebook, and we can uninstall it. Yes, uninstall it. Grand, and it goes away. That's good news. We also have Netflix and Relax. File Manager, Weather, Clock. We've got a Google Suite here as well with YouTube Music, Play Store, Duo, Assistant. Then over here we have the Google sign-in, or the Google, what's it called? The thingy-mabobber? Google Now or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. And we'll go straight into the camera, allow while using an alloy. Okay. So we'll take a couple of pictures of Mr. Campbell over here. And his chick Sheila. And we'll try the Indiana Jones just to see how nice the colours work out there. And then zipping in here, we can see that it's good representation. Yeah, it looks rather nice. A bit of a soft focus on the background there. We have a dedicated night function, which is cool. which obviously isn't integrated into its own sensor, so it's not going to automatically detect whether or not you're at night, I don't believe. HDR is on auto, portrait, and we have more functions here where I've got dual view video, slow-mo, time-lapse, video pro mode, extra HD. That sounds intriguing. Enhancing quality. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll try and replicate that in non-extra HD. Can't say I'm noticing too much, but that's just an initial reaction to it. Not seeing too much there. Okay, so, oh yes, I wanted to check this as well. See what the dual view. Aha, okay, so that's a bit like the... Alright, inside settings, what are we on? So, Android 11, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage, of which 111 is remaining. And we do have an update to it, to ColorOS 11.1. So I'm going to go away and play with this for a while, and I'll come back and let you know exactly how I'm doing with it. I'll have to apply this update as well. So it's actually been about 3 weeks, as you can see it's May 22nd, that I've been using this phone, and I have to say I am pretty sold on it. I'm quite impressed. I have a few reservations about it, and I'll go through those as I talk about it here. However, from the very first word go, the phone is solid, and I want to go straight to the point that Oppo have made a phenomenal job of appealing to the folks that use a phone, because this is a phone and it makes great phone calls. Now you may notice that on my screen here I have 2 bars. That's not a lot, that's not terrific, but 3, the network that I am on in my neighborhood, is woeful. 2 bars, let's drop down to 1 there, but 2 bars is what I consistently see throughout my house, and that's more than I've ever seen on a phone, ever. It's always 1 bar dropping down to 0 depending on where I go. This has almost consistently 2 bars right up until this moment of filming. Perhaps I just haven't noticed it fall down to 1, but I still have a signal in the house, which is incredible. Oppo attribute that to the fact that they've packed in 9 antennas around this phone. So depending on how you're using it, there are antennas. There might be, say, 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, and 3. I'm not entirely sure. But you put your hand around it, and you're probably blocking some antennas here, but the ones at the top and the bottom are able to broadcast and receive, which is terrific. And again, if you're playing a game or consuming some media, there are antennas on the side that are working for you and getting you better reception. As a phone, if you need a phone, this, I'd say a second to none at the moment, because I'm just blown away by the performance here, because it just makes calls and it receives calls all the time. The second thing is that this phone is actually a wee bit of a life changer. I have very much changed the way that I charge this phone in my daily life. Normally I would come home, I would still have about maybe 40% of my battery after a day's work. That would last me to bedtime, and then I'd place it on its Qi charging pad and it would slowly charge up to 100% ready for the next day. I don't have to do that now. I don't have to remember to do that. I don't have to even be concerned about the battery meter, because I know that hooking it up to this cable will turbocharge it, or supercharge, or flash charge, or whatever it's called, up to 100% in virtually no time. I can whack it on this with the Super VOOC. I still haven't got used to unlocking this phone though. You can see it just ramping up the charge there really quickly, and that's really reassuring. I can go to bed with this having something like 20%, and then stick it on charge while I jump into the shower the next morning and have almost 100%. And even in the car, I've noticed that it charges just that wee bit faster. It seems to make that little bit extra out of whatever power is available to it. It'll suck in more energy in order to get this up faster. And I'm really impressed by that. And it changes the way your attitude toward things, because you don't have to plan that much about charging your phone, because you know it's not going to have to sit on the charge stand for too long. The next one is the cameras. Now we have a 64 megapixel here, and then a 2 megapixel mono camera here, and the other, that was the 2 megapixel ultra, or whatever megapixel ultra, that's a ultra wide one. And then this is the macro camera. So I thought I'd take a little look through some of the images that I took whilst using this camera. And I took it down to the beach, and this is a perfect example of just how nice some of the pictures can turn out. As you can see, there's a massive amount of colour here, the blue, the white, and the brownish grey of the sand, and a little dog way out in the distance. This automatically jumps into recognising the scene that you're trying to take, and it maximises the cameras and gets them all to work together so that they take the best possible image. Now you can take around in the settings and play around with that so that it doesn't do that, and there's a whole sort of professional side of things where you can manipulate all of the settings. I didn't bother with that at the meantime, because I think most people are going to go out and just take the phone out of their pocket and snap away. Now this is another wide shot that packs in a huge amount of detail. You can see the detail from the sand and the detail on my son's coat there, with a rock and things like that. It all looks very, very nice. It's a good quality picture that would be worthy of going into any album. So then the macro camera, it's a really nice little feature here as well. I've taken a picture of some screws from some garden furniture. The detail is perfect. You can see tiny fragments of wood and things like that. This automatically jumped across to the macro camera for me whenever it detected that there was nothing of real subject matter here to latch onto until the macro camera was engaged. And at that, it did its automatic thing and tried to get the best picture possible. And of course we have the panoramic function as well, which is something I always love to play with. And this is a full panoramic of my front garden. It looks really nicely. It's all stitched together quite nicely. I had the feeling that this was actually video being stitched together that way, and it was making a photograph out of perhaps the 4K video camera, recording as much as possible. So we're going up for some fine detail on this tree, which is the typical photograph that I always take. This tree's been documented throughout the Tech Addict's history. As the moss does grow more and more, you get a nice level of detail, and you can see that the focal point is right in the center, with the closer part of the tree being blurred out, yet the distant part of the tree is still very much in view. There's a little bit of fungus as well that has a similar thing going on, and the background is quite nicely blurred out so it focuses in on what you're taking a picture of. Now, of course, it's not always flawless. This was a picture of one of those, I think it's a worm that pushes through the sand, or maybe a hermit crab or something like that, and it pushes sand up to the surface. It didn't quite manage to do that quite well, but then this picture of the seaweed did work out quite nicely. It does pack in a large amount of colour and texture as well. Moving across to the video camera, I had to play around with my little dog as he was parading through one of the larger pools of water. And one thing that I've noticed on many phones is that whenever you go to the slow motion function, is that it degrades the quality of the video and uses lower quality video. And it does that to a certain extent here, but not as bad as some of the other phones that I've used this on in the past. And the detail here is actually very good, and it's a very smooth slow motion video. And for this one I did the same thing. However, I kept a thing in the foreground so that it would have trouble working out what's what and where, but it manages to keep the focus on the dog as he comes close to it during the slow motion. So the camera is very adept at detecting what to shoot and what not to shoot, and out of all the photographs that I took, there was only a few that I would say didn't work out quite so well, and at that, they're not terrible. Now, going for the low-level light pictures, I did try them outside. However, recently it's been really stormy and things like that, so getting still pictures outside has been quite difficult because there's a lot of movement. So I decided to go back inside and take some pictures at night inside the house. Here, for example, is part of my James Bond collection on Blu-ray, and we have straight from automatic mode, taking a picture is a bit dull. It's not great. Having a go with the flash, there are a number of functions that can be used with the flash. This is the main flash where it's just on. This is flash set to auto. Now it may be a wee bit different because I moved my hand whenever I was taking the picture. The picture crop is slightly different. And then this is the fill light that you can turn on, which pretty much works like shining a torch. Then of course there is the night function as well, which Oppo have, is a setting that allows you to do something along the lines of astrophotography. And the countdown will happen of 20 seconds, and it'll take a bunch of different photographs and then pulls all that information together and produces one image. Now you have to stay still for this or use a tripod. If you try to move or there's any form of camera shake during the 20 seconds that it's taking these pictures, you get a lousy shot. This was taken in pretty much pitch darkness on a tripod pointed at this collection of cars and Bond awesomeness. And it's alright, it's not too bad. Perhaps it would work slightly better if it was pointed at the sky, looking at the stars, letting as much light in as possible. But you can see, for where it would say never again, there is a light in the background, and perhaps that's messed around with some of the optic analysis that's going on there. But it does have an overall blurry feel. And if it was less cloudy, I would have loved to be able to get this out and point it at the sky and see if I could take some photographs. But then you have street lights and those sorts of things for most people who are in an urban environment that would end up meddling with that. And having tried astrophotography in the past, I know that can be a problem. But all in, all things considered, the camera is rather good for the money. The sound that comes out of it is a little bit annoying. I'm used to a Samsung, so I'm used to having sound coming out of the earpiece whenever I'm playing a game or watching a movie, but it only comes out of the bottom speaker, and at that it's not amazing, but it's still quite good. But then you have the 3.5mm headphone jack. I'll take it off the charge, I don't really need to charge it. Now I still have never quite got to grips with exactly how to unlock this phone as I'm showing in this video, although I have used it for the last number of weeks. I know that you pick it up and then the thumbprint shows, whereas I'm used to just picking it up, hitting the power button, and that turns it off. I've never got over that because that's the way I had my other phones set up, and that's me. Now this is obviously a 5G phone, and I wish I could have tested the 5G to see just how fast it was. I live in Northern Ireland and I'm on 3. I don't have very many 3 or 5G options. I was in the centre of Belfast, which has a 5G network apparently on it. This is on auto, so it should have latched onto it, but it never did, and I got a bit frustrated with that. So I wasn't able to have a look and see how the speeds work out. But given the price of this, getting a 5G version would future-proof yourself if you're looking to change it up, because there's always new 5G networks rolling out all over the show, and apparently there's one opening up near my house, which would be great after I send this back. Now they do put in this cover, which is grand, and it'll last you until you get a better cover. The cover is it's not precision cut. It moves and it's a wee bit noisy whenever you're using it. All the buttons are actually covered in plastic, so you can't feel the buttons, and it does attract quite a bit of dust because it pulls back quite easily. It does, however, have little raised ridges here, which is kind of nice, but it'll do you right out of the box whilst you're choosing a better cover to put onto this. Which boils us down to the price. Apparently this is about £379. Now, that's not budget. It's not. However, it's a hell of a lot of phone for the money. I'd say that puts it in no mid-range, which is not what some people are coming here looking for. It's called a Lite, which I think is unfair because it's not light. It's very much a feature-packed phone. Light implies that things have been stripped out, and I couldn't say that I would say anything has been stripped out of this. It maybe has been dumbed down a little so that it's a wee bit more cost-friendly, but it's still quite expensive for a budget phone. Oh, it's a very top-end budget phone then. But what you're getting here is an awful lot of phone for your money, and anyone would be very pleased. I would like there to be a micro SD card slot. There's not. There's dual SIM, but no micro SD. That would really benefit. Running out of space would be an option if you're going to be having this on, say, a 2-year contract. And then looking through various reviews of other Oppo phones, I do see a lot of people complaining about the actual UI of the Oppo phone. And to be honest, I find it quite simple. It is very intuitive. It works quite nicely. Everything's laid out very well, and there's a good amount of options. A lot of things, however, are turned on by default, and that kind of annoyed me whenever I first started using it. For example, the bedtime mode, which turns everything black and white to save your eyes and to make things a wee bit better for you in the evening. I wasn't aware of it. The very first night I had it, I sat up in bed to use it, and it was after, I think, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. And whenever I picked it up, I dropped it. It hit the floor, and I turned it on, and it was black and white. And I thought I had caused it a problem. But thankfully, it turned out it was merely a setting that I needed to adjust here so that it turns on slightly later in the evening. Or you can turn it off altogether. But it's turned on by default. And I guess that means you probably not find it if it wasn't turned on by default, and now you know that it's there. But at the same time, it caused me a wee bit of stress at the time. I didn't want to have to write to Oppo and say, I can't send it back because I busted it. But everything else in the interface is fairly standard as to what you would expect to see from a heavy Android overlay. And that's what this is. It is a heavy Android overlay, but it still runs really nicely. Oppo have spent a lot of time making sure that this is a smooth experience for the user. Being able to find every setting that I need whenever I do it, it's laid out differently to a Pixel or to a Samsung, but it's all there. You can search for your specifications when you're looking for them, and they're easily findable. But all in, I'm really impressed. I would recommend this phone to anyone who's looking for it. If you're watching this thinking, should I buy it? Don't doubt yourself. You're going to get good value for money. It's at the top end of the pricing structure for what you get, but you are getting a very quality and enjoyable device that makes phone calls first and foremost. I can't highlight that enough. And well done to Oppo for sticking those antennas. I just checked my notes there, and they've got 10 antennas in here distributed around the phone. That's terrific. Oh, the battery lasted me, I would say I could push it to 2 days if I needed to, but without a care in the world, I was getting a day and a half. If I was doing a bit of gaming, if I watched some Netflix, very heavy use, I'd probably say it would get you through the day, and you're going to need to top it up toward the end of the day. But again, topping it up is not an issue at all. 15 minutes and you're laughing. So, well done Oppo, very impressed with this. For those who are concerned about the idea of the fast charging killing the battery, that super VOOC or whatever it was that popped up there, they say that's tried and tested technology that does not harm the battery, and we should hopefully see that the battery will be able to take that continual fast charge over the duration of it. But I guess time will tell whether or not that's truth or an inaccuracy. So yeah, the Oppo Find X3 Lite is a cracking little phone. 120 Hz, decent battery, fast charging, great for phone calls, lacks the SD card, gains a 3.5, has USB Type-C, speakers are uninspiring, but all in, grand, very nice. Impressed by Oppo. I look forward to seeing what they bring to the table next. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can check the show notes down below, turn on those notifications and hit that subscribe button. Give us a wee thumbs up if you fancy. And remember to tune in to TalkSport on a Wednesday morning at midnight for Inspect Your Gadget, and the Tech Addicts podcast, which goes out every Sunday. And other than that, take care.